It wasn't fought with weapons, it was only fought amongst the government themselves.
Okay, good. So it wasn't fought with weapons. It wasn't like World War II where we're having people bombing cities, the troops going in and landing on the coast. What it was is it was fought between the governments. So that's why it's called the Cold War. But what we're talking about today is the Cold War. How cold was it really? So you guys should know that even though it's considered a Cold War, there was actually a lot of very heated, different conflicts that were going on. So 4 heated conflicts. We're going to be talking about all 4 of these today, briefly. And so I want you to be paying attention to which of these you're most interested in. Okay? The reason for that is our project that we're going to be doing over the next 2 days is going to be, we're making Cold War comic strips. So comics were actually a really popular form of media during the 1950s and 60s. And so in order to reflect this, what you're going to be doing is paying attention to each of these 4 different engagements and deciding what you're most interested in. I'll give you more information about that. And you're going to be making a comic strip based on that. So I have an example actually. You're going to be starting them today and finishing them up as testing goes on. So this is something that's kind of fun that we can do. I made an example one, and I'll pass a couple copies around so you can just look at it. I took way too much time making the example because I actually had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm going to pass them around. So just take a look at it, pass it around. You don't have to pay attention to the content. But this is what you guys are going to be doing. So you're going to be picking one of these 4 events, and you're going to be making something similar to this based on it. So definitely pay attention to these events so you can pick what you're most interested in and do your comic book on that. Sort of just pass them. Okay, so be sure you get down all 4 of these events, but we're going to be talking about them as well. Well, Hitler's dead at this point, right? So it's Stalin. So it's the U.S. versus the Soviet Union. So it's Stalin that we're concerned. Okay, so as always, if there's any questions, definitely stop me. We're going to try to get through it quickly so that way you can spend more time reviewing the information and starting on your comic strips. And so there's going to be a lot of room for creativity as far as how you're going to be drawing your comic strips. If you're not an artist, don't worry. You're going to be labeling everything that you draw how I did, because I'm not judging you on your art, I'm judging you on including the important events. So we'll talk more about how to do the comic strip though as we get to that. So that'll be the last half of the class.
Do I have to draw that?
You don't have to draw anything that's on these slides. These are just visual aids because I think it makes it more fun. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. What do you think is happening in this picture? Does anybody want to take a guess?
Intern camp?
So you think it might be an internment camp? Why do you think that? Why do you think it's an internment camp? Okay.
I think that's like another. They're going from another country.
Okay. So we think maybe immigration. You're all incorrect, unfortunately. Okay, Alexis. He kind of had an idea based on what number 1 is. What was it, Alexis?
I was saying.
Oh, okay. Denise also knew. Denise also knew as well.
I said it.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So we won't worry about who was right and wrong. What we'll worry about is yes. So they're dropping food. So you should be. So you should know that in this picture that they're dropping food and other rations to the people of Berlin. So we're going to talk about that now.
Did they fight for it?
Did they fight?
Yeah, like fight for it.
No, not so much. I mean, there was plenty to go around, and they knew that they were going to be supplied enough for everybody, so they weren't too worried about it. But here's a little bit of background about it. I think they were smart enough to know not to throw things down like that, but I'm not sure. Okay, so we need the side conversations, please. Michael. So if you decide to, they threw bread, they threw flour, they threw, what? Burger King. Yeah, no Burger King, unfortunately. They tried to keep it more nutritious, but
That's why they were skinny.
it's true, it's true. So the Berlin blockade and airlift. So this is your first event. So again, I'm not going to give you all the information you need to know about this, just a little sample. So if you decide this is something that you want to learn more about, then that's what I hope you'll pick to do your comic strip about, and then I'll give you more information about it. So as we discussed as part of our Potsdam conference and our Yalta conference, is that they divided up Germany into 4 zones of occupation, right? So who do we have up here? Okay, Great Britain, good. Over here? Russia, the Soviet Union. Here, of course, the United States. And over here we have France, okay? Good, so if you don't remember the 4 zones of occupation, you want to write that down. So we had Britain, Soviet Union, the US, and France. But what made it interesting is that not just the country of Germany was divided into 4 zones. Actually, the city of Berlin itself, right over here, whose territory is that in?
Russia.
They're in Russia's territory, right? But it's divided up like this. So there's also 4 zones of occupation for the city of Berlin.
So the white space has like.
Yeah. So that's the city of Berlin, and this is kind of like a zoom-in version of what it looks like. So the city of Berlin is right in the middle of Soviet territory, but it was divided into 4 zones of occupation as well. So the Allies, our anti-communists are over here on the west side, and then on the east side we have the Soviet Union. And so that's where later on we'll have the Berlin Wall, up in between the Soviet side and the American, British, French
So
side.
it divides in half.
Right, so it's divided just about in half. Yeah.
I was watching the Simpsons yesterday.
Oh my God.
And then they talked about I think it was Russians or Canadians. And they closed and they did like this big wall.
Oh, so like an iron curtain
Yeah.
from Canada to the U.S. Yeah, actually South Park has
South
or
Park, Simpsons.
also has a lot of
South
South Park has a lot of like, interesting historical references too. So does The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And Family Guy too. A lot of cartoons
Like
actually.
the Canadian movie.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that they have in there. But so, to get back to this Berlin blockade and airlift, so what problem do we think can come from this being divided 4 ways within Soviet territory?
Whoever can want that land.
Okay, so it's not really a land dispute that's going on at this time. Okay, good. So the Soviet Union has more power over Berlin. Why is Berlin so important? It's the capital. Okay, did everybody in the back get that? Lisa, did you get that? Yes. So what's Berlin? Why is it so important?
Oh no.
Okay, it's the capital. Okay, so we want to know that. So what the Soviets are doing is they decide they're going to shut off ground access from the west into the city of Berlin. So they're not going to have any way of getting trains, cars, any kind of supplies in on the ground into Berlin. Okay, so any questions on this so far? Okay, so this presents a problem. Because Berlin, of course, was destroyed by the war, they don't have the ability to produce enough to provide for their citizens. So an emergency airlift began to supply the population with its necessities. So food, fuel, etc. And if you want to find out exactly what they were dropping in, then perhaps you will pick the Berlin airlift as your thing. And so, just so you know too, after you guys make your comic strips, I'm going to have you getting with people who chose a different event, and you're going to be sharing all that information. So you'll still get all the important information, you just won't be focusing